Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I am one of your hosts, Steven Fontana, and with me, as always, it's Andy Asimakis, and we're on fire! What? What's up, Andy? How are you?
Oh, that was a totally unscripted moment. That
It
was
was.
very, very good
It
and
was.
not at all cringy.
It was okay. It was fine.
Great.
It wasn't my
Totally
best.
good.
It wasn't my best.
You've done so much better, but you know what? I'll allow it. It's love. The world's on fire.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The whole world is on fire. And as if one Andy is just not enough. And believe me, Andy, you are enough. We have another Andy with us, and it's Andy Hull, the creator of Dunk Lords, a 2-on-2 basketball beat 'em up that is as over the top as it sounds. Andy and Andy, both of you, welcome to the show. But more specifically, Andy Hull, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
We're very, very pleased to have you. We tried to get this thing last week. This was going to be last week's episode, and the shit hit the proverbial fan, as it were. So we kind of had to push this down the road. But we're here, and we're ready to do this thing, and we're very excited. So thank you so much for joining us on this Friday evening.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, last week just got a little crazy. I was even trying to figure out if I was going to launch when I was supposed to launch. Um, so it was a tense couple of days trying to figure out what we were gonna do. But now kind of we got through launch. So yeah, going forward from here.
Awesome. For those of you that are new to the Dual Screens podcast, this is an interview show where Andy and I bring on an industry guest to tell us their story and to discuss their latest project. Everyone in the gaming industry, be it a programmer, an artist, a voice actor, whoever it is, they have a story to tell, and we want to be their platform to do so. The Dual Screens podcast posts each and every Thursday on your podcast service of choice, including iHeartRadio and Spotify, and you can find everything we do on youtube.com/DualScreensTV and, of course, on DualScreens.com. When we're not interviewing awesome game devs, Andy and I also host the Dual Screens Gamescast. That streams every single weekend, usually on Sundays, on twitch.tv/Dual Screens streams and posts on your podcast service of choice on each and every Monday. And ladies and gentlemen, that's on the same channel. That's right. You don't have to subscribe to two shows. We're not just trying to get you to subscribe to like 5 different of our shows. No, it's one channel and you get both of those shows. But you also get a third show, Andy. And that is one of our seasonal shows, which is nearing its conclusion, which is Andy Explains It All. This is a show where one idiot, Andy, our smartest idiot, explains something to me, our dumbest idiot, that I know nothing about. And it's a lot of fun. And we just did an episode of Wes Craven, and we're going to do a surprise Steven episode where Andy's going to explain something that I don't know and I didn't pick. So that's going to be very excited. Very, very exciting. And please, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, do us a favor. Go down to the review thingy. Hit the 5 stars if you like what you're listening to, and give us a review. I mean, honestly, is it going to kill you? Think about it. There are a lot in this world. There's something very specific in this world that will kill you, but this is very much not one of those things. I'm going to check and see if we got. Oh, look at this. We got a new 5-star review here, Andy.
Oh my God.
We did.
The world is ending.
This is from Rompacon. Rompacon. Great podcast, 5 stars. Love this show and their site. There you go.
Aw, that's so sweet.
And that site, of course, is DualScreens.com.
Look at that.
And if you want
some hope in the world yet.
Yes. And if you can't, if 5-star reviews aren't enough for you, you could actually give us your money. Which, wow, if you do, you can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/NDS podcast, just like our Patreon producer, Colton, the apprentice Nestler. We cannot continue to grow without all of your support. And we hope that in these trying times and where everybody's kind of stuck in their house, that we hope we give you some sort of sanity or insanity for that matter, to kind of help you get through this. So we're going to try and do as much content as possible. We got a ton of stuff on our YouTube. We got a ton more. We have over 20 more interviews from PAX East that are going to go up on our YouTube throughout the next couple of days. So please, go there and give us a subscription.
Steven, before you go any further, can we
yes.
just shout out our latest Patreon subscriber?
Sure.
And can you tell us how and why they joined? That's a pretty fun story, I think.
Sure. All right. So on Twitter, somebody kind of added us about our interview with Matthew Cote regarding our Dead by Daylight interview, and apparently this is a very big Dead by Daylight fan, and kind of pointed us into some sort of situation that Candyman might be joining Dead by Daylight. Like, he follows Tony Todd, the actor who plays Candyman, and this actor followed Dead by Daylight and Candyman the movie in the same day, like back to back. So it was like, oh, what is this thing? But this was in the middle of craziness where I really wasn't able to pay attention to our Twitter like that. So I just kind of sent gifs and reactions. But no, this guy really wanted us to know this. And so he became a Patreon supporter. Came in there, gave us money, joined our Discord, and then messaged me in Discord saying, "Hey, I'm the guy that gave you this tip. Check it out." And I was like, "You know what? We're going to write about this." So we wrote about it. And that's actually pretty interesting. And that's the story.
It's a great story.
It's a great story. So now we have a new
great
patron.
story.
And, you know, I mean, maybe after the hot tip, he's going to leave, but he does like us. He said he likes the show and he likes our interviews. So who the hell knows? But that is going to do it for all the boring shit. Now let's get into Dunklords with a Z. Andy Hull, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. No, I think I'm still kind of hazy. I was working like 12-hour days for the last month with no days off, trying to get ready for launch. So I'm still kind of in recovery mode and just like self-care. But the thing is I pushed so hard because we were trying to release our scheduled release date was the first day of the NCAA tournament, which seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Smart marketing approach.
That would have been
I'll give you
nice.
that.
Yeah. I figured what site wouldn't want to write about a basketball game during the NCAA tournament? This will be a great
Yeah.
time.
Mm.
That
Fucking
didn't go,
genius.
yeah, that didn't go so well.
So Dunklords, we got NBA Jam vibes, but you have a bit of a twist on this thing. Why don't you tell everybody what is Dunklords?
Yeah, so Dunklords is 2-on-2 arcade basketball, but it's actually mixed with a fighting game. So you're actually picking from 16 different characters initially. There are some hidden characters in the game as well.
Is Bill Clinton one of them?
No,
Okay.
unfortunately not.
Okay.
But all of the characters have their own special stats and abilities. So they have special attacks that you can use. They also have passive abilities that help them out that are all individual to each character. And in between games, you can also use money that you earn during the game to buy gear, which will give your guys even more abilities. So you can kind of customize your strategy
Ooh.
during the game in order to take advantage of what your opponent is doing, or potentially set up combos between some of the items.
What kind of abilities are we talking? Like it was saying like throwing items or like more speed or strength. Like what kind of items?
So I mean, there are definitely shoes that just make you faster, but there's also shoes that let you dunk from anywhere inside the 3-point line.
Ooh.
And then we have some crazy gloves, like ones that let you block shots by raising a chain link fence out of the ground. There's gloves that when you do an uppercut, which is how you stop dunks in this game, is you try to uppercut them out of the air if they go for a dunk. But there's an item that when you do your uppercuts, you'll actually throw a tornado out, which can catch people in it and spin them around for a little bit. And then there's also armor items you can get. So an example of that would be there's a fan armor that blows people away from you, so it keeps spacing a little bit separated, so it's harder to steal the ball from you. There's also magnetic armor that will make the ball attracted to you when it's a loose ball. So there's, I think, 15 of each item type in the game for a total of 45 items. And then each game, the store will stock 3 of each type. So there'll be 3 gloves, 3 armor, 3 shoes in the shop, randomly selected from those 15 of each type. And those are the same for that whole game, but every game you play, the store is randomized.
That's awesome. So obviously there was only one super powered move in NBA Jam, and that was the elbows of doom. Chucking those elbows around like crazy, just just knocking dudes out. So talk to me about, are you just using these fighting mechanics to just knock the dude on the ground, or are there health bars? Like how does that work?
So there's a energy meter in the game, which is similar to, say, like Turbo in NBA Jam. And so you use your energy to sprint. You also use your energy to do certain moves. So uppercutting uses some of that. There's also a dash move that you can do. And if you manage to dash through an opponent that has the ball, you'll instantly steal it. And instead of knocking it loose, you'll just straight up gain possession.
Mm.
But both of those moves actually will drain some of your energy. But then when you attack your opponent with either your special moves or your uppercut or with items or however you end up doing damage, it will drain their energy. So you're potentially preventing them from running,
Got
preventing
it.
them from being able to dunk, preventing them from being able to throw uppercuts. And so, there's the strategy of just playing basketball really well and trying to get more points, which is how you win the game. But there's also kind of the smothering defensive strategy of just beating the crap out of your opponent and making it hard for them to catch up on fast breaks, catch up on defense. They'll have trouble stopping you from dunking, right? So if you can keep them low on energy, they're going to have a real hard time stopping you.
And now, Andy, you reviewed this game for DuelScreens.com. You really liked it a lot. You gave it a buy it, our highest recommendation. What were your thoughts on the game?
Besides loving the shit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is an audio podcast,
Well, I think
so
I
if you can
think
talk,
right. I think the highest praise is because I don't play sports games, and
Mm.
to get the highest honor on our website for a buy it from me, who I don't play sports games at all. I don't gravitate towards them in any shape or form. But seeing that NBA Jam sort of motif going on with this kind of like Overwatch, League of Legends in the characters, really sold me to the point where I thought, okay, I'll play for a little while to get a sense of it. I would take some notes down. I'd do a nice review. It seemed like a lot of fun. But to get to the point where I was yelling and cursing at the TV over how cheap the computer can be sometimes, just like an NBA Jam, like back in the day, like, you're cheating. I was up by 10. What happened? Complete collapse in the fourth quarter. But it's everything you want in a 2-on-2 arcade style basketball game. And it's surprisingly very well written. Like, the characters have so much charm. Frank is my boy. So Frank is like this strawberry head dude with like a Hulk, a teeny Hulk muscular green body. He's like super short, a lot of attitude. Love him. But they're all really well written. And one of the things that caught me off guard was that there was this really deep story mode in the game that's just so ridiculous and over the top. Like, it didn't need that. It could have been like, here's the roster, here's their stats, here's what they can do, here's a practice mode so you can play as them. But nope, here's like a whole thing about this dunk academy, and there's a missing dunk lord. It's all this mystery and intrigue. And it didn't need to be there, but it's just there. It just makes the whole thing, the whole package, so much more better because of it.
Well, I
And
mean,
yeah.
I if I could chime in, yeah, I mean,
Yes,
the
you may.
reason the reason we did that, I think, was because, well, I was nervous, right? Because I worked on the game by myself for 3 years before I brought on another artist to help with that after 3 years, and then just in the last 3 weeks of development, I had brought on another programmer, but we did not have a big team, and we could not add online. And everyone was like, "Oh, we're like, if you're making a sports game, like, can we play online?" It was always one of the first
Mhm.
questions, and I knew we couldn't do that. I knew that that wasn't something I could tackle, but I said, if someone buys this game and they are, say, quarantined in their own home for some reason,
Mm.
uh, they they're gonna want something to do if they don't have friends over. And so I said, you know what? We'll replace, instead of online, we'll do a story mode. We'll make like a full single player game out of it.
Right.
Um, and the interesting thing is that as big as it ended up being, so I think it usually takes people like 5 to 6 hours, I think, to beat the story mode right now.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it ended up, I think, feeling like a real experience. Um, Initially, it was going to be even bigger. It was actually initially set up to be almost like a little mini Diablo type situation, where there were towns that you could go in and buy gear at shops, and you could find, we called them scrubs, but they were just like randomly generated basketball players that you could challenge, and then you would make money from those games. You could like wager on them and use the money to buy the gear. And so the gear that's in the arcade mode, like in the stores in between games, was initially kind of like the legendary equipment that you would be able to find in the story mode. And that just proved to be such a huge. I think we got like one of the towns built, and you could kind of challenge people and talk to people in the town. And I said, "Oh man, like this is where I'm going to be working another 10 years on this."
Oh, geez.
Um, and so then we were like, okay, so how can we tell it like the same plot but in a simpler way? And so what it is now is like you play games and then there's cutscenes in between that connect them, um, and kind of chain all the events together. And that's kind of where we ended up. But there was a time where we tried to go even leaner, and we had the cutscenes almost like a visual novel type thing where it just popped up pictures and had text, and it was just too dry. And I said, we at least need to animate the cutscenes, like at least needs to feel like a real cutscene in between these games to make people care.
So you had created this story mode on the idea that if there's someone in their home who can't leave the house for some reason,
Mm.
has a mode to play and they can't get online, and then you flash forward to the present day when you're thinking, I shouldn't release this game during a massive global pandemic, but you had the mode ready. You had the foresight to do it.
It's true. It's true. It could have been a lot worse, right? If it was only local multiplayer, I think we would have been in a real big pickle. So, yeah, it did work out. I mean, thank goodness we did it. It was one of those things where, um, yeah, I mean, you just can't plan for this stuff. You cannot plan for this stuff at all. But I mean, I really wanted to tell the story of the characters in some way with the game, because I feel like that's what, if you have funny characters or different characters, people will connect with them somewhat. But having their backstory, having people relate to kind of their plights and their personalities is like what endears people to the characters. And I wanted that sense of the cast uh being characters that people cared about and not just sets of abilities that you were picking from.
Can I ask
You-
why?
I want to say one thing before you ask,
Sure.
Steven, is you remember that old NBC show Hang Time?
Hmm.
It was like kids with a basketball like team backdrop going on.
Hmm. I remember.
This was like that show, but set in the future. It's like a bunch of kids, and they're all like clicky and they're friendly, and they go on zany, wacky adventures
Basketball
over
adventures.
the course of like all these matches. That's what it reminded me of.
Andy, why was character important to you in this game? Like, obviously, the core of the game is going to be the 2v2. Like that's like what's going to sell this game. Why was the character so important to you?
Um, well, I mean, you'll note that the company name is Storyfort. So it's
Sure.
kind of initially when I started the company, it was to make interactive children's books actually.
Huh.
Um, and so I had done an interactive children's book called What is Bothering Carl? I'm not going to spoil it here, so don't even ask. But that was a kid's book that had songs and kind of taught vocabulary while kids read this book, and there was like a little matching game built in. That was actually nominated for the PAX 10 um, a ways back. This is, oh boy, I don't even know what year. Um, Many moons ago, uh, at an early PAX 10, and that did really well critically, but did not do well commercially, and so I needed to figure out something else to do. And actually, while I was at that PAX 10, was when I hooked up with Derek Yu, who was the creator of Spelunky, and ended up jumping on as the programmer of the HD version of that game. And then my
Nice.
company Storyfort kind of went into hibernation while I worked on Spelunky. And when I came back out of doing that, I started my next project. And, you know, I really like coming up with characters, coming up with stories. Um, I had a comic strip in college. Like, it's one of those things that is just part of games that I like. And I didn't, even though I was making this kind of 1 to 4 player multiplayer game, I still wanted to find a way to get that part
Mm.
of what I like to make into it.
Who are your inspirations as far as storytelling in video games? Like, who do you think does it the best out of everyone?
Oh, you know, this is a really hard question, and not the reason this is a hard question for me, I'll tell you, is because I actually have a huge retro game collection in my basement.
Hell yeah, you do.
Um, and the thing is that I love most of the games I play actually don't have a lot of story, which is the kind of ironic part. Um, I really like books,
Okay, fair enough.
which I mean, so
Books, you say?
the thing is like yeah, I like books and movies. I actually have a hard time with video game stories a lot of the time. I'm trying to think of like one that like really kind of like captured me, but at the same time, like I just feel like they're not that engaging. And I think that Dunk Lords actually has a lot of the same problems of video game stories that I don't like,
Oh,
right? Which is
expound.
like you have to read a lot of text when you want to
Right.
play the game. Um, and I feel like Dunk Lords is completely contrived the world in that every kind of problem in the world is solved by playing basketball. But like that doesn't make any sense, right? But it does it has to be that way to support the gameplay. So like to say that it's like great storytelling, I'm not sure that's true. I think you can kind of have good moments and have good characters, but to say that like oh like it was this well-crafted thing. I mean, I try to hit some beats and stuff, but it's really hard to kind of after every scene everyone has to end up playing
To
basketball.
justify, because like in the beginning it makes sense where they're training and they're sort of like going back and forth and sort of showing off the game's mechanics, but then it goes from this guy is going to be our slave. Hold on, let's play basketball for him. And I'm just like, all right then, that's how we're going to
I
settle
mean,
this.
that's
Like
kind of like how shit
on
was
the
settled in
courts.
the school on the schoolyard, you know? Like after school it was like, yo, all right. Like I remember one time, now this wasn't a basketball issue, this was more of a baseball issue. But I remember getting into an argument with this kid on my block named Nick. We both played baseball. We both fancied ourselves as some pitchers, and we got into this argument. And I don't even know what the hell it was about, but essentially we settled it by having a strike throwing contest. We were like, well, fuck you. You get across the street, get your brother. He'll catch you, or I forget what it was. I think we both threw to his brother, and his brother called the strikes. And I don't know why I fucking did that. I don't know why I agreed to that shit. But that's how we did things on my block. That's how we did things on the street, as they say. So in the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York, you know what I mean? We don't play around in the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York. I don't know how they do things by you, Andy, but
Well, that actually
we didn't
raises a
settle
good
shit with
point.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards. You know what I mean? We should settle shit
Right.
with sports action.
Why did you land on basketball, Andy? Why this particular sport for this game? Like, how did the whole vision and the concept sort of first crop up for you?
Well, I so that there's like a combination of this. So one is that I played a lot of NBA Jam growing up. I played a lot of Street Fighter 2 growing up. And part of the creation of the game was saying like, hey, these things would be fun together, right? Like I remember staying at my friends' houses overnight, staying up all night on Super Nintendo, like switching back and forth. And it's like, wait a minute, like we could just put these two games together. This would be super cool. Um, the other part of it is just I have always loved basketball. Like if there's one sport that I always played, watched, it was basketball. Um, my dad went to Duke, which I know is not going to be a popular sentiment, but so I grew up watching like Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, like that era of guys when they were winning titles. I played basketball until I stopped growing, and then I got cut from every team I tried out for. Um, but it's always been like the sport that I like loved the most, had the most fun playing. I mean, I would still play in college. I would go to the gym and play. After college, I played in at the gym and stuff when I could. Um, and I'm not good. I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea. Like I am not a good basketball player, but it's just always been something that I've loved. Um, and so when I finished the programming for Spelunky and I was like, well, I should prototype and see maybe what else I could do next. And I had a bunch of prototypes, and one of them was just a guy like he was made of boxes and he could just dunk on this hoop that was just kind of levitating in the air. Uh, and at one day while I was working on the prototype, I just decided, hey, I'm going to put a defender in there. And instead of having him, try to actually cover him like a real basketball player would, all he could do was uppercut. So one, and there was no AI, right? So it was just I had to have somebody come over and test it with me. But it's like one player just tried to dunk and the other player just tried to time an uppercut to hit him out of the air. And I was like, this is cool. This is a really fun interaction. And I started just kind of building the game out around that. So that was like the initial prototype, was just one guy dunking, one guy uppercutting. And that's kind of the core of the game. Like everything else is built from that premise.
Did you think
Yeah,
that was going to be the answer, Andy?
yeah, that's it's like I understand, like you've sort of had this idea in the back of your mind for, I guess, since you were a kid, more or less. And it's kind of like just always back there, and then you got into game development, and then you were working on Spelunky for a bit. Um, at what now? How did you go from Spelunky into this? Was it just you had some free time on your hands, or you thought, I've programmed someone else's game. Now I want to make a game of my own now that I want to create and sort of get out there.
Well, it was a combination of those things, right? So I finished the Xbox version of Spelunky.
Hmm.
And then we had a year exclusivity agreement with Xbox. So we could not launch the PC port of Spelunky, of the HD version of Spelunky for a year. And I kind of looked at the work I had to do. And the thing is when we were developing the game on Xbox, we always had a PC version that would run
Right.
so that we could work on the game when we weren't near a dev kit. So it was just a matter of adding mouse to the menus and adding the Steam leaderboard support and whatnot, right? It was basically a matter of just making a few changes. And I knew it wasn't going to take a whole year. And then I also knew that I wanted to kind of make my own thing again. So I had, out of college, I got a job at a toy company. So I actually worked for 5 years as a wooden toy designer. Um, and I had been used to kind of making my own stuff there, where I was kind of in charge of my own projects and coming up with the idea, designing it, doing the packaging, doing the whole process basically. Um, and when I left to start my own thing. I left to do the kids book thing. And then Spelunky was kind of the first time where I wasn't in creative control of what I was working on. Now, I did have a lot of creative input on that project, but obviously it was Derek's baby, and I was just there to kind of make it happen too.
Mm.
Hmm.
And so I don't even think it was ever a question in my mind that I was going to try something on my own if Spelunky did well enough to allow me to do that. Um, and I mean, Derek and I would even talk about it while we were working on Spelunky, like, oh, I'm thinking about ideas for what I'm going to do after this. It wasn't like a rash decision. It was
Right.
always like, hey, like this is what I want to get back to doing. Um, and so, I spent, you know, 6 months after Spelunky came out on Xbox, probably. Well, there was like 2 months of like doing an update for the Xbox version and doing some support, and then I probably spent 6 months just doing prototypes before I ended up doing the PC port of Spelunky. Um, and so in that period, I was just experimenting with a bunch of different things. Um, and Dunk Lords was just the one that kind of came out as like the winner.
I mean, it's fascinating that while you're working on somebody else's thing, that you're able to function out. Cause, like, you hear these horror stories of game development and like outside of crunch, but just getting something done could be so daunting in when you're making a video game. Yet you were kind of always thinking behind the scenes about what was going to come after this. What was Derek's support in all of that? Like, did he help you achieve anything with Dunk Lords, or was it just simply a somebody to bounce ideas off of during while you're working on Spelunky? Like, how is that relationship?
Well, I mean, Derek and I are really good friends, and so like while we were actually doing the Spelunky development, the idea of Dunk Lords had not come up yet. So that Dunk Lords like Genesis was during that kind of like prototyping phase, like before
Mm,
we worked on the PC version. And actually, Derek's involvement in the PC port was way less, right, than it was when we were working on the Xbox version,
sure.
because he was actively designing and adding art and doing all this stuff. Like we were working daily together on the Xbox version, whereas the Steam port, he helped, he did testing, he gave me what support I needed, but it was a lot more of just this just needs to get programmed, right? Um, but like I talked to him tons about what I was working on. He played a lot of the prototypes I was making, and he was super super supportive. But like he didn't actually, um, I guess, offer any like thing concrete towards Dunk Lords, right? It was kind of the moral support and kind
Sure.
of the just the feedback part of it. But he was definitely supportive of me doing something on my own after Spelunky wrapped. I mean, we have known each other since we were in high school, junior high school, only online. We actually did not meet in person until much, much later. Um, but we met in a game making community that we were both making games in junior high. And so with Click and Play, I don't know if people know that software. It's a very old game making software for kids, basically to learn programming. Um, and so he knew that I wanted to make games. I've always wanted to make games, and so he was like, "I want to see what you make next," right? Like his thing was always like, "I know you can do this by yourself. I want to see what comes out of you," right? Um, so it was really encouraging, and it's also really encouraging to see someone finish something. Like you said, I mean, making games is really hard. It involves a lot of commitment and a lot of doubting yourself and just keeping going. And to watch Derek go through that and to be going through that with him, it made it a lot less daunting to get through my own game. And it also taught me what I needed to know when those times did hit with Dunk Lords, right? Because Dunk Lords took 6 years. Like it was not the smooth road that I kind of had envisioned at the beginning, which was like a 2 to 3 year project.
What were some of the hurdles you had faced in that 6-year development cycle?
Um, their names are Amelia, Marion, and Griffin. My my the three children that I had while I was doing the development of Dunk Lords.
Oh,
Hurdles.
I have never felt more like sympathetic towards a person in my life. Like, yeah, I get it. I get that for sure.
So and I also just had some family issues go on with stuff. So and we moved like after Splunky, we ended up moving, and I thought that would just be a super positive thing. And while it was a good thing that we moved, like I am happy with where we ended up, like the disruption and the having to like meet all new people and get situated in a new area, like it all costs time in some sense, right? And it's all these things that seem, and they are at the time, they are worth it. They are worth the time away. But when added up, right, I mean it adds years to the project.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. And so it definitely became a slog, and it got scary in the middle. Like, can I actually do this? For sure. Like, it was not at any point in the bag. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is great, this is going to be perfect. And there was also this period where I had gotten the game. There was one court, Dunk Baby Academy, the first court.
Mm-hmm.
There were 4 characters in the game, which was Slice, Orwell the robot, Frank the strawberry, and Marlin the bear were in the game, but those were the only 4 characters, and the game just wasn't clicking. And I spent almost a whole year with just those 4 characters in one court trying to figure out how the rest of the gameplay was going to work around the basketball. Um, and that included coming up with the shot pads and how they worked, and coming up with how the items were going to be distributed. Um, how what was inbounding going to be, how does that work, like how there's all these small decisions that were causing major problems, like how does goaltending happen, does that happen, um that needed to be solved before I could move forward, right? Because I could keep adding players and courts, but that doesn't matter if the actual game isn't fun.
Like the fundamentals of basketball. Like I really do like your shot clock violation uh animation there.
Yeah. So I mean, we could say it's not really a spoiler, right? So when the
Yeah,
shot
no,
clock,
go for it. Yeah.
when the shot clock runs out in Dunk Lords, a giant shot clock just falls on the character and knocks them over, and the ball goes flying. Um, and so what I ended up kind of figuring out was that one, the game couldn't stop. Like it wasn't fun to inbound the ball. after every basket, it wasn't fun to just have somebody walk out in a canned animation, toss the ball, and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to solve that, and it. I also didn't want like canned animations of like fancy dribbling, or like kind of moves. We tried it, and the thing is you lose control of your character in those moments. And because of the fighting game influence, I really wanted the input to map directly to what the characters were doing, and that did mean losing like crossovers. Right? They're not in the game, and it's not because they're not cool or because I couldn't do it. It's because when a crossover is playing, like, what do you do? Like, you just let the character keep moving? Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
have to. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like, that is a thing that's happening that you're not doing, which felt real bad. Especially at the speed that Dunk Lords moves, it just wasn't working. And so it was all those little experiments and little tests and like, basically solving all these minor problems that came up that kind of stopped it from being fun.
Right. You see, now I'm looking back to when I had my 10-point lead and I lost by 5. It was the whole the lack of an inbound animation. Because at first I was like, why is this not here? Why is the ball being stolen within seconds of them just having scored? But then the more you play, it just makes sense in how in the world and how the characters move and behave. Like it would totally tear down what you're trying to do in the game itself. Like just this fast paced like frenzy. And it's like a battle. It's an all out battle on a basketball court, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't want the brawl to kind of stop. And the
Mhm.
thing is that there is concessions to inbounding, right? So the game has
Right.
this concept of the inbound sphere or inbound bubble. I think it's called the
Mhm.
inbound sphere in the I am not sure. Um
It's just your game.
yeah, no, but the way it works is after a basket is scored, the ball will turn the color of the other team for a few
Mm.
seconds. It's like 2 or 3 seconds, and only they can pick it up. But if that time period passes, then it's a free grab for anybody. So
Mhm.
the other team has to get the ball like right after it goes in, or else are at risk of losing it just outright. And then once you pick up the ball, as long as it's glowing your team color when you pick it up, a shield will appear around your character, which lets them bring up the ball while being invulnerable for a short period of time. So you can actually kind of start some sort of play. You can start some sort of plan. Otherwise, right, your opponent could just camp with special moves right
Right.
under the hoop. As soon as it goes in, one guy shoots it, it goes in. The other guy could uppercut you as soon as you go to pick it up. So that wasn't going to work. Well, I mean, it was like that for a while, and I was like, "What am I going to do? This is horrible." Like you, you could just get locked out of having the ball
It's
completely.
like getting cornered in a fighting game
That's
with
what it
no,
feels sometimes.
like, yeah.
Yeah,
That's how it felt.
yeah, and it's still you can still set up some traps to like get
Yeah.
people, but the way that the inbound bubble works, it gives you a shot to get out, and it kind of generally like if you watch footage of the game online, generally it goes one possession, one possession, one
Yeah.
possession, one possession, with the occasional breakdown where somebody messes up or an attack gets in just at the right time, and you'll have a team get the ball twice in a row. But like that just became part of the game, right? Like creating those situations became part of the strategy. And there's actually items that interact with the inbound bubble too, which can kind of mess with that as well.
It's
So let's
just so
talk
much
about
fun.
strategy now. Since you're
So
talking
much
about
fun.
strategy, um, the game is out now. Reviews, I believe, start coming in. We reviewed it favorably and all that fun stuff. What has reception been like, and what is your plan going forward to support the game?
So the reception has been good critically. Like definitely the reviews that have come in have all been great. Players are really liking it. Our Steam reviews are incredible. I can't actually almost believe how good they are. Um, People are definitely digging the game. We are for sure having trouble getting the word out about the game. Um, I mean, it did not help to launch probably so close to Animal Crossing and Doom.
See, that was
Uh,
your big problem, not Corona, by the way.
but
It's like
right. And also, well, and coronavirus didn't help too, right? So, I mean, there's all this stuff going, like GDC was canceled, like, there's all this crazy news happening.
Mm,
I do think we got lost in the shuffle a little bit in terms of like getting like major articles about the game or major reviews, which has definitely hurt us. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but it didn't hurt the reception of the people that did play the game. Like, I think people are
right.
really digging it. So our strategy right now, like, I mean, tomorrow I'm back on to work on the game. So 2 of the features that got cut basically right before release that we just didn't have time to get finished are going to come in the next update. So we're adding a speed run mode to the game so that you can actually speed run the story mode. And we're also adding another hidden character. So there are hidden characters already in the game that I don't think anybody's really found. And we're adding another one in the first update that my daughter designed.
Oh wow.
Oh.
So yeah, so we'll be posting kind of her initial concept art and everything when the update comes out. And but it was one of those things where she's been watching me make the game, and she's super artistic. She's in first grade, loves to draw, and she was like, "Dad, can I make a Dunklords character?" And I said, "All right, go for it."
Look at that.
So
A hurdle
and
became an asset
yeah,
somewhere down the line.
exactly. Well, I
A
got to put
hurdle
them to
became
work.
child labor.
Exactly. I mean, I gotta milk them for what they're worth here. Like, so, but no, she did. I mean, she came up with a really cool idea actually, and she was trying to raise money over the summer to buy her own Nintendo Switch. She wanted a Switch Lite, and she was like, well, I think she was like $50 short, and so I bought the rights to her character, just for this one game for $50 so that she could get her Nintendo also.
How old is she?
So she's in first grade.
Oh my god.
So I have a contract. I have a picture of it. Like, we got a contract signed by her that says I can use her character in Dunklords, but she keeps all the merchandising right
Steven,
to
you
her
have
character.
you have 2 kids. You're
Yeah.
slacking. This guy's light years ahead
I
of you.
feel like a 7-year-old can't sign a contract. I don't know. I'm just going out going out on a limb here. She might need some legal representation.
So
But if that is true, if there's a loophole here, there's a lot of shit I should be making my kids sign.
yeah,
Look, she has a legacy before she's even 10 years old, dude.
yeah,
Her ideas are in a video game.
yep. So yeah,
So-
so we'll see. Like, she'll get a she's in the special thanks already, but when the patch comes out, she gets a character design credit actually. So
That's awesome.
there you go.
Can she be our next guest on the show?
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah, honestly, she probably could. She would get a kick out of that.
Would,
We'll do a DLC for this episode.
without giving it away, why are the secret characters so hard to unlock?
No, they're not. They're not. They're not that. It's not. There's nothing that tells you how to get them. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So I think people just haven't bumped into them yet. But they're not. It's not. It's nothing crazy. It's not like, oh, you got to beat the game 3 times in a row and then like reboot your computer and edit some file. It's nothing like that.
Got it.
So it's pretty straightforward. Someone will figure out, oh, wait a minute, there's something I can do. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
but
We'll see.
That's a lot like the old like Mortal Kombat arcade games. Like they'd have things baked in. They weren't as obvious. Just at some point, someone always stumbled across how to unlock Smoke or whomever.
Right.
On the
So
arcade
that's
machine.
what we were going for, right?
Yeah.
It's like that old arcade vibe where like they're not so hidden that you can't just accidentally, like someone somewhere will stumble into them and then we'll be like, okay, yeah, that you found them.
Congratulations, you found the guy.
I did want to ask you one thing just to go back a bit. So you mentioned when you're working on Spelunky, there was that year of Xbox exclusivity. What does that conversation look like on your end? How does that begin? Do you see that should more publishers be doing that, like having this 1-year rights to a game for their platform only? Is it more of a case by case basis? How did it work out for your team in more of a positive sense?
Well, so when I jumped on a Spelunky, that was already set.
Mhm.
So, and I think, it was a real different time, right? Because that was back when XBLA was kind of like a big deal, and they had just done Braid. And so John Blow, who made Braid, had actually, recommended to his producer, like, hey, you should check out this Spelunky game, the freeware one that Derek had originally made. And, they worked out a deal, and that was just part of it. Like it was well before I was even on the project. I think that it makes sense. I think a year is a long time. And I think generally these days people are probably doing less amount of time than a year. But I think it does make sense for teams that need support to make a game or to get to the finish line because, I mean, they're not getting that year for free, obviously, right?
Right.
So, being able to do that, um, you know, gives both the company, the console company has something that they can say only they have for some amount of time, and it makes it a lot more comfortable for the developers to like get through development. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it makes sense from both sides, which is why you see it happen so often, honestly.
All right, we do have a listener question here from Buzz Killington. You actually answered 2 other questions already from Peter and from Vector in our Discord group, which was Vector asked about if it's more of a beat 'em up perspective or a traditional fighting game perspective, and what game inspired the fusion. You kind of already answered that. And then Peter asked, "What inspired you to mix basketball with fighting to create such a fun-looking game?" Which you already answered. But this one from Buzz is there any specific player that inspired the game? So, I mean, you did mention the whole Duke thing, the Grant Hill, and as you know, Grant Hill drinks Sprite. Were there any? That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut.
Oh boy.
So
That is how you know we're old.
I know.
Right.
I know it's a
Oh
problem.
my god.
So yeah, were there any specific players that maybe inspired character designs or anything like that?
I actually actively tried not to have characters in the game that were too inspired by real players, just for like not really legal reasons, but I just didn't want to get into a mess with that. I will say, like my favorite player growing up, easily, was Charles Barkley.
Oh, that guy's a knucklehead.
Yeah. So
Shut up and jam, bro. Shut up and jam.
so the thing is like, uh, I wanted the game to have kind of like a brash attitude, I guess, is what I took from that. And I mean, I watch, a good amount of basketball. And so, yeah, like I would say, like Wilbur, the real tall guy. I mean, like there's definitely some like minute bowl going on there. Like I definitely looked at some reference. I mean, and I kind of was inspired a little bit by like Russell Westbrook and how kind of tough he plays and stuff like that. But like I didn't make any like real close analogies like per character, but I was definitely looking at like different types of players in the NBA and like, oh, what would that look like in Dunk Lords, right? Like you've got kind of like Chutney, who's this like orange toxic monster who is Maurice's like old partner, and like he's definitely, like the 3-point shooting guy who plays like real hard defense, and like,
Right.
he's not all about dunking, and he actually even so when you dunk, that's how you get more special attacks, is by dunking generally. But Chutney's passive ability is that when he does a layup, he gets it also. So it's like he's not about the flash, right? He's just
Right.
about whatever's
Get
better,
points.
get the points, get the play done, and he'll still get the bonus. So, it was more like the vibe of different players was kind of like
It's very
inspiring
Steve
me.
Nash like, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Or like Stockton or something. Like there's
Yeah.
definitely, he's like in that vein. And then you got, then you got big tall guys. Then you got like the Bear, who is very Shaq-esque. He's just a big bruiser, cannot shoot to save his life, but is real good at dunking.
Can barely walk. It's like, move.
Yeah,
So slow.
So, but like he does, I mean, he's so big. His like
Right.
hitbox for intercepting the ball is huge. So like, just put him in the paint, and just like
Uh-huh.
they're gonna have a problem. Uh, so it was that kind of thing where I was like looking at like the different kind of like genres of player or something, and making sure that I had those all covered in the game.
Are there any players that you've been able to meet because of this game, or any opportunities to meet
Oh,
any real
I
players?
wish. No, that would be so sick, honestly. So I'm in Baltimore actually, which doesn't sound like it would be like a hotspot for that because there's no NBA team here, whatever. But Under Armour is actually based in Baltimore. So a lot of the Under Armour sponsored players are coming by to stop at Under Armour, and like maybe I could work something out. I don't know, but I haven't talked to anybody from there or anything. I just that's my best shot. That's the closest connection, right? That's my like 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
I think if you start adding people on Twitter, you could probably get somebody to check it out, and Like Shaq. Shaq is always into stuff like this. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to go
That's
through his
Shaq's
people
move.
for the most part, but like
Yeah.
he's into this kind of goofy shit. He
Yeah,
likes it.
yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely the segment of players who probably think this is dumb looking kid stuff, and then there's definitely the segment of players that are like, this is crazy and hilarious, and I'll be into it. Just and I don't know that for sure, but that's the sense I get. And the thing is, I was actually really worried about like how kind of these like tough basketball playing, basketball loving guys were gonna like the game when there's like this goofy strawberry and just like dumb stuff going on and stupid puns. And like we went to the first packs and dudes would walk up and they're so serious and they're looking at the game like, what is this? I don't know if this is cool. Should I be standing here? And then like Frank puts somebody in a jelly jar and they just bust out laughing. And then they just like love the game, right? It's like it just like instantly connects once something like that happens. And they're like, or like Wilbur will just drop a bookcase on somebody and they'll just like people just get it, right? So I think like kind of everyone's a kid at heart, right? And I think I learned that a lot during Dunk Lords. It's like if you do something that you think is fun and that you enjoy, like other people are gonna see it and be like, that's pretty cool too, right? You just had to learn to trust myself a little bit with that stuff.
All right, it is time to move on to our rapid fire questions. Andy squared.
Ooh. Can I
Um,
say it's really great having another Andy on the show for a change?
I know we've had so many
We've
Stevens and
gotten like so many
Stefans and Stefans.
Steves,
Oh man,
Stefans, Steffens.
there's a lot of Andys in indie games, especially. There's too many of us, so you won't have to go far if you want to look for some.
All right, send me a list. I mean, we're done talking.
Got to up your game, Andy. All right, so let's go with our traditional first rapid fire question, and it's a simple one here, Andy, and it is pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Oh, it's my favorite pizza.
Wow.
It's not even close. I mean, like
Wow.
it's that's what I order. Like when I
Oh my
get
God.
pizza. Yeah.
We've
So
had yeses and nos and downright nevers, but never that much praise for
We've had a
pineapple
lot of
pizza.
indifference
Yes.
to that question.
no.
Right.
Like I mean, like sweet and savory is the best combination. And like anytime you can mix like fruit and meat in the same dish, it's
Mm.
good.
Especially pineapple, man. Like pineapple juice is an excellent hot wing base. Like an
Oh,
excellent hot wing base.
yeah. It's so good. I
Mm.
don't I like I don't get why people are grossed out by it. I mean it's like dessert pizza.
Mm.
Like it's I mean it's just like it's so good. Yeah. No, next question.
Moving on.
Hell yeah, next question.
Which animal adds more joy to the world? Squirrels or llamas?
I think squirrels just because they're more ever present. I mean,
Mhm.
that might be a very US centric answer, but like I have been brought to had joy from many squirrels and I think I've only seen a llama once or twice.
And
So,
it gave you no joy.
I mean, they're cool, I guess, but like squirrels are just like I don't know, like if I'm looking out my backyard and I see a little squirrel, I'm like, "Hey, look, it's a little squirrel dude." And that's just like a little bit of happiness.
And if you saw a
If you
llama,
saw a
you'd
llama in
call
your backyard.
you'd call 911. Like, what's your reaction to a llama? I'm confused in this.
No, I mean it would like there would be a little panic mixed in with the happiness for sure. Like, why is this here? I mean, they're all right. I'm not scared of them, but like,
It just
it's
calls
just
for alarm. There's a llama in your
This is
backyard.
Right.
something is awry.
right. Whereas squirrels, you're like, they're they're supposed to be there. So,
All right, next question. Apple or Android?
Apple, and I say that not because of, uh, you know, Android might be better. I don't know because all my whole family uses Apple products, and we FaceTime all the time with my parents, with my wife's parents. Like we couldn't be not on Apple even if we wanted to be. Um,
Stockholm
yeah.
syndrome
I
is what you're saying.
What's that?
You have
What?
Stockholm
No, I mean
syndrome?
I actually don't. The thing is, I've never owned an Android phone, so I don't know what I'm missing, right? And I'm perfectly content with my Apple phone. And I'm actually, so the thing is, I work in games, I work in tech, but like I am not the guy who gets the newest stuff, right? Like I'm the guy who saves the old stuff. So like once I had an iPhone, I was like, this is cool, and then I just kind of kept it. I mean, I don't even know what my iPhone is now. It's not new. It might be like an 8 or something.
Hmm.
7. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like if it works, I'm good. Um so yeah, Apple, but like it's kind of by default. Like it never had any competition yet.
Andy, next question.
What is the lamest dessert that people try to pass off as a dessert? Now you can't say
Oh.
pineapple on pizza.
No, I won't. I won't. No, I mean, so yeah, like the answer for me for this has just got to be fruit. Like because
Yeah.
my
Yes.
my my wife, her mom is from Taiwan, and like when we have dessert at her house, it's just like, oh, I got some oranges for dessert or something, and I like oranges. I like oranges after dinner, but I would never classify oranges as dessert unless there is some additional sauce or
Or it's in a
sugar.
pie or something, or
Right,
like
right. Like just an orange is just a snack, or like I don't know. So I call it Chinese dessert, and we actually joke about it, like because my wife will be like, "Oh, after dinner we have some dessert," and I say, "Is it dessert or is it Chinese dessert?" And what I'm asking is, it's like, are we just having a piece of fruit? Because that doesn't count for me.
Yeah, if you don't feel bad after eating it, it's not dessert.
it's like, oh,
Right.
thanks, Ma. Is there a pie in the oven back there? What's going on over there? Is that a
Exactly. Exactly. Do we have
brownies?
some chocolate I could dip this in?
At
Like,
least have you exactly a little chocolate orange to go
Let's
with
stick.
yeah.
it.
Let's stick with the whole dessert thing. Cake or pie?
Pie.
Mm.
100%. I like
Mm.
fruit if we haven't noticed. There's a strawberry man in my game. There's also a toxic monster made of peach chutney.
Chutney.
So, like, I mean, like, I'm definitely it's fruit all the way. And actually, I'll tell you, my favorite pie is key lime pie.
It's a good
Ooh, you
pie.
are a good man.
It's a
See,
good
you're
Yeah.
pie.
eating the whole pizza pineapple bullshit in one in one fell swoop.
So, but this is way more fruit centric with these questions than I thought it would be. Like, this is like yeah. But continue. I'm good with this actually. It's on
All right,
brand for Dunk
all right,
Lords.
all right. Here we go. What is the most boring thing ever?
The most boring thing ever? Oh man. Oh. I mean, probably like reading contracts is like the most boring thing ever in my life.
Oh my god, I can't
Like
even. Ugh. Yeah.
I can't like yeah, like the thing is I really like making games. I really don't like running a company. And like it is just so boring and bad. Like, cause it's not. So there's boring where you're like, I don't have anything to do, but at least you can kind of like sleep or like think of something, right? Like there's like opportunity. But like when you're reading a contract, your whole brain has to be doing this boring thing. So it's not. It's that you cannot escape the boredom. The boredom is your existence, right? Like and like you will not be done until you are very bored. Like so it feels like that kind of all-consuming boredness has to win over just like, something that is just, not that exciting or
That's why
whatever.
lawyers exist.
I honestly I don't know how they do it. Like
I don't
if
think they
my
do. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think they bullshit their way through everything.
j-
They look for some keywords and like, oh no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that
yeah,
clause. Let's get
yeah.
rid of that.
So I mean just it's unbelievable. So that's my answer for that. I wish I had a better one, but yeah, I cannot think of anything that like just takes it out of me more than that.
All right, so let's go with what is your favorite gaming controller?
Um Boy, my favorite gaming controller, well, like of all time, even, whew, it might be the Wavebird, which is
Great
like,
That's a great
controller.
controller.
yeah, like, and I love how it feels, and it's just the like it was the first like wireless controller that really worked, just like it was plugged in. And like every time I turn on my GameCube, I love using that thing. Uh, I don't think anything tops that. And I say that knowing that, like, you wouldn't want to play Dunk Lords with it probably. My favorite, like, kind of modern day, like, modern layout controller is probably still the 360 controller, maybe.
Mm.
I really like how the 360 controller feels. And I have a bunch of them from doing, like, Spelunky development, and I still a lot of times will end up testing on a 360 controller, and I like the Xbox One controller and the PS. I definitely prefer the Xbox layout over the PlayStation layout for sure. Like, that's not even close. And the newer controllers are fine; they're good. I'm no complaints really, but I still like how the 360 one feels for sure. But yeah, the Waybird probably has to take number one.
Hmm. Would you rather have the power of flight or invisibility?
Um, oh boy. So I've been asked this a couple times, and the thing is, I don't like heights.
Mm.
So this question has always been framed to me, and then people explain after I say invisibility, but don't tell them that it's because I don't like heights. They say, well, if you choose flight, you're choosing good, the power of good. If you're choosing invisibility, you're choosing the power of evil, right? Because if you're invisible, you're probably up to no good. If you're
That's
flying, you're
propaganda bullshit, Andy. Just don't let them fool you with that
You could
trickery.
fly low to the ground, Andy. Don't believe that.
what?
There's
No.
nefarious actions come of invisibility, and we all know it.
They come
So
from nefarious people.
we
Yeah.
have.
I could be invisible for good.
But the thing is, here's the thing, and this is what somebody argued with me, and I kind of agree with this actually, is that even if you're invisible for good, you're still kind of like up to no good for good, right? Like, you're spying on someone that is bad. So
Sure.
it's a good thing that you're doing it, but you're still kind of a skeezy dude, right? Like, there's no sense in which, I mean, if you announce to everyone that you are invisible, that's the honorable thing to do, but then you kind of lose the ability. Like, the ability doesn't really help. I mean, you could do innocuous things, right? Like, you could move things in the back of, like, movie sets. So you like it could look like items were levitating without computer graphics, because you would just be, like, holding them up or something. Like, there are ways to use the ability that are not, like, morally corrupt.
So you would
But
just do a bunch of continuity errors in cinema if you had this
right,
ability.
right. Like, so I mean, there's things you can do with it that are fine. And, like, flight, the thing is, I would love to be able to travel quickly. I would love to be able to, like, help people out, or, like, get around quick. It's just the actual thought of, like, being in the air with nothing under me is so terrifying. Like, I would not I even if it was totally safe, there was no way I could fall, I wouldn't trust it.
This rapid fire question comes from one of our Discord people, Maltese. His son asked him this today. I'm just going to read his quote. My son asked me this today. Why is blue? So, why is blue?
Why is blue?
It's a great
Uh,
question. It's a great
oh,
question.
I believe his son
Oh,
is
man.
3.
So, yeah, I mean, oh boy, if my kids asked me why is blue, I would just say that they light can be seen in various colors, and that blue is one of them. And that's why we have blue. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
Andy, before I give you the next question, I'm just going to read a couple of these from Discord, and then I'll give you the final
Sure,
question.
go right ahead. Go right ahead.
This one also comes from Maltese. Is sports fusion similar to Asian fusion, which will give me less heartburn?
Uh, Sports fusion will definitely give you less heartburn.
There you go.
Asian fusion, like, is good food. I like it. Uh, it's not. I will say, so my wife's mom is from Taiwan, and her cooking is amazing. It's like traditional Chinese food. It is. It bears almost no resemblance to any Asian fusion or Chinese food that you will get at, like, a restaurant in the States. It's a completely different set of food.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if people know that. Maybe people already know that, but, like, like, General Tso's chicken is not, like, a thing over there.
Mm.
Yeah.
This one comes from Vector. Are you looking to continue sports fusion style games, or is your next project totally different?
Um, So I don't have a next. I'm being completely honest. There is no next project at this point. Like I literally just finished the Steam build of Dunk Lords like 2 days ago. But I would not be opposed to exploring the idea again for sure. And I actually would I mean, we definitely have ideas for doing some DLC content for Dunk Lords if it does well, in terms of more characters and stuff. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I will say that the end of Dunk Lords 1 leaves room for Dunk Lords 2. Andy, did you get to the end of the story mode?
I did. I don't want to say anything
Oh,
because
don't say anything.
I
No,
don't
no,
want to
no.
say
Yeah, we don't
anything.
want to spoil, but like after we stop recording, I actually might want to ask you a couple things. But so the thing is, there's definitely a thread that could be continued if there is a sequel, and that was very intentional. And because I really had fun making this game, and it would be fun to do another one. And I also, I would be open to making another sport of potentially. I mean, it's a genre I like, and I played a ton of games in this genre to research for Dunk Lords, and you know, I love NFL Blitz. I love Sega Soccer Slam. I love Mario Strikers.
Hell yeah,
There's
you
a
do.
lot of games that I like that do other sports, and I have ideas for those too, for sure.
All right, Andy, take us home with the final question.
All right. Is it the final, or is it
Yes.
my final and then
No,
the
it
final?
is the final.
All right, it's the final question. All right. This is the most important question, Andy, that you're gonna be asked in your entire life.
All right.
So take your time, think carefully, have some orange slices, and consider your answer.
Some Chinese dessert. Here we go.
Stave
I was
off
gonna
the
also,
scurvy.
I was gonna, I was gonna also say, Asian fusion. When it gives you heartburn, have an orange slice to kind of calm that down a little bit.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. All right. So the final question: Andy or Steven?
It's Andy. It's not even close.
Wow, a definitive answer. Very good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
No, Andy, like, it's a good name, and well, the thing is, and like we actually have different names, Andy, because I am an Andrew,
And I'm an Andreas. Yeah.
right? So, but it's versatile like that, right? Like
Right.
in a way that in a way that Steven is not.
No.
Right.
No, it is not.
And the way he totally isn't in this little cult of ours, the cult of Andy.
Right, and also, it's I just feel like it's a quick, easy to say name. It's got a very like happy feeling to it. Like you don't know of any like downers that are Andys. It's like Andy, yeah, that's a happy
Right.
name.
Which is why an Andy wouldn't abuse his powers of invisibility to go creep on people.
No, but you would. All
Listen,
right.
Even if I had flight powers, I'd do some fucked up shit.
Oh,
I would
know.
just rob people and fly away.
You just be throwing shit on top of people's cars on the highway. You're just a garbage person. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the Dual Screens podcast, the end of the episode, folks. We did it. We made it to the end here. If you want to follow us on social media, you could do so. We are at NDS Podcast. I am at Batchild27. Andy is at Pansky. And other Andy, where could everybody find you?
So you can find me at Storyfort on Twitter. That's like my company Twitter. Also at Dunk Lords Game is the Dunk Lords Twitter, or you can just go to www.dunklords.com for all in the information about the game and the company and whatever else.
Awesome, awesome. And if you want to join our Facebook group, we're facebook.com/group/dualscreenspodcasts. And you could also follow us, dualscreens.com, DOTCOM on Facebook as well. Excuse me, if you want to follow us on Twitch, you can do so at twitch.tv/dualscreenstreams, patreon.com/NDS podcast if you want to support us there, and you could shop our wares at dualscreens.com/store. Our theme song is Retro Chatter by Bradley Parsons at Train Sound Studio. Thank you very much to Andrew Douglas for our art. Thank you, Matt Murray, for all of our fancy logos. We do appreciate everybody out there that helps make this show possible. Especially our guests. And that brings me to Andy one more time. Andy, thank you so very much for joining us on the show. We are very excited that we were able to get you on the show, and good luck with Dunk Lords. And we hope that maybe when you have some DLC to announce, you can come back on the show.
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I had a good time, and yeah, it was awesome.
Andy, is there anything you want to tell the kids before we go? My Andy, this Andy, Dual Screens Andy?
We have like a bajillion guests lined up that we're going to sift through at some point this weekend.
Yes.
organize and scheduleize and all that fun
Schedulify.
stuff.
The cool
Yeah.
thing here, listeners, is that we are recording this almost an entire week before this goes live. But if you're a Patreon producer, this is the kind of thing that you get, or not producer, just a Patreon supporter. I believe it's at $5. You get any show, any Dual Screens podcast that we record, you get it the day we record it. So I'm literally going to edit this as soon as we hang up, and I'm going to put it on Patreon for you. So sometimes, yes, we record on the Wednesday before the show goes live, and sorry about it. But then you get lucky, and we get to send you like 3 in 1 week. So we love you, and we love doing that for you. But until next time, that is going to do it. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, other Andy. It was a pleasure. Take care, and as always, please be excellent to each other.
And wash your hands.